this week, actually, because it's a season where students are committing to the majors, deciding about the colleges. Let's talk about what's happening in the college landscape. How is AI actually impacting that?
And speaking about AI and big bets, Google bets big on the agentic enterprise, and they release a whole bunch of mission control platform controls to build and govern and observe AI agents.
There's always some or other threat, right? I mean, AI has become actually a national security issue. So White House is now warning of AI distillation theft by the foreign actors, and it is proposing coordination, best practice, intelligence sharing, and accountability measures.
And OpenAI, they've been on a tear this past week, but they've introduced a really, really good image model called GPT-Image-2, which has some really great things: web-aware thinking, being able to do multi-shot sets, and just a really good model. So we'll talk about that.
But then not to forget about the GPT 5.5. The SPUD model is here, and it's great, but it's also very costly.
Yes. So all that and more, we'll cover that this week on the AI Files.
Stay tuned for a quick introduction. Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. If you're looking to stay up to date on the AI, this is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co-host.
Hello, everybody. Jamie Basilico, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
Okay, so talking about the colleges, this is a season, as many of the people would know, that May 1st is usually a deadline to accept your college decisions. A lot of the students will be deciding about different majors. Most of the time, people have multiple options in terms of the majors, in terms of the colleges, etc. And one of the things that is actually on the mind of a lot of students, and I have a student who is making that decision this year, is where to go, which direction to take, what majors to pick from, and which colleges to choose. And some of the things that is actually influencing those decisions are that, okay, which careers are future proof or AI proof rather. Parents are heavily involved, the same parents 10 years ago, which basically the comp science had become a number one kind of a major. But that's now pulling back. What is happening is that the parents are getting involved and people are asking questions. The AI companies have done, I would say, they're part of fear mongering in terms of, the coding jobs are reducing, the programming will be fully automated and things like that. Now that's on people's mind, and it is reflecting in the numbers. So if you see between 2008 and 2024, the number of 4-year computer science degrees in the US surged, rising roughly 5 times. It outpaced the growth in any other high-paying fields. Now, what is happening right now is that the new data from the National Student Clearinghouse shows the undergraduate enrollment in comp science programs at 4-year institutions, which is undergraduate programs, dropped 8.1%. It's the steepest 1-year decline of any major since at least 2020. And the graduate enrollment fell even further, down 14%. So people are not even going into the deeper studies actually anymore. Similar trend was observed at Princeton University. For example, comp science was actually the most popular major between 2011 and 2017 and held that position through the class of 2025. But the more recent data suggests that the demand actually may be cooling. 74 students in the class of 2028, and generally, in the second year, you actually declare a major. In the class of 2028, 74 students declared a comp science BSc, which is actually down from 117 the year before and 150 the year prior. So it's almost half in just last 2 years. And those numbers are actually, some of them are astonishing. The interest in comp science is cooling while some of the other technical fields are gaining ground. For example, the enrollment in mechanical and electrical engineering has grown by about 11% and 14%. At the University of California system, which has like really good universities, for example, University of California, Berkeley, UC San Diego, etc., the comp science enrollment dropped. System-wide, it fell 6% last year after declining 3% in 2024. So almost like 8% it has already declined, even though the overall college enrollment has climbed 2% nationally. So this trend is unmistakable. Um, and basically, it reflects the people anxiety about comp science, not just comp science, but about a lot of other majors as well. It's not just the comp science. People are evaluating which major is really AI proof or future proof. Now, in order to protect them, what is happening is that the people are looking into a lot of new kind of majors, or the majors. It's not that they're trying to avoid the AI; they're trying to avoid the jobs that might be impacted by AI. For example, MIT actually launched a new major which is called AI in decision making, and it is now the second largest major on campus. And the New York Times in December also actually the University of South Florida enrolled more than 3,000 students in a new AI and cybersecurity college during the fall semester. Similarly, the University of Buffalo launched a new AI and society department that offers 7 new specialized undergraduate degree programs. So, a lot of AI infused or AI centric majors are actually gaining ground in the hope that they help you future proof your career.
Yeah, this is going to be a shift that we see. So I'm not surprised by this. As we talked about before, you've got kids in college going, about to go into college. I have a son that's graduating in a couple of weeks. So I've seen this trend over the last 5 years, from when he started deploying to where we are now. And we live it day to day on what we do as our jobs, but also to the customers that we're talking to, and the shift in the types of roles that they need. It's less dependent on, I need to be a computer scientist to develop code. It's not needed anymore. I'm definitely not going out on a limb when I say that, but it shifts. It's different. You need people that are going to be understand the decision-making process to be able to build agents, or to analyze those things that the code agents actually develop. So it does shift. I guess maybe my point here is that it's not that we don't need computer scientists, but what they do is going to shift, and maybe that changes the curriculum and changes the degrees. But there will still be a need for people that understand these things. But it's going to be not, hey, I'm going to be a computer scientist because I want to develop game code, as an example.
True, very true. And some of these study, like some of this, for example, the the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they actually came out with a report predicting what will be the top jobs, right? The highest number of jobs in the next decade. Similarly, the World Economic Forum also had a study on almost something similar to 2030, what will be the top jobs. And software engineering and computer related majors or careers are still at the top. So it's not that those roles completely go away, they definitely evolve more for sure. But what it does reflect is that there is definitely an anxiety and people want to actually protect them. Of course, people are even questioning. There are new debates in terms of colleges are they even worth it, right? Because some of the AI leaders keep making the comments about, okay, you don't even need a degree, or there'll nobody, white collar jobs will disappear. So people are even questioning that, do I need to invest for almost like 200 300,000 dollars in the college tuition over the 4 years? Is it worth it? Should I even take a loan? How will I pay back? Things like that. So it's tremendous time. A lot of, I would say, there is definitely a lot of influence in the decision making which is happening right now. People are also, for example, this actually Forbes has a list of what they call as new IVs, the top 20 new IVs they call them. They are like 10 private colleges and 10 public universities, and they identify them. One of the criteria they use is how well these are using the AI in their curriculum, in their campus teaching, etc., and how the companies are finding them, their students, kind of ready, right, for the corporate job. So that list is out there, and but you can see, right, those evaluations also now include those criterion about how much those universities are adopting AI and including them in the curriculum. So it's going to be, like, to be honest, nobody knows what will happen 5 years out. Things may turn out completely different, but
Yeah,
this is what is the reality right now.
that's for sure. And we could probably have a continued discussion and debate for the next hour, if not the next day, on this topic, and it'll certainly change as things go on. I guess moving on. Speaking of moving on, let's talk about Google. So they had their CloudNxt 26 this past week. A lot of stuff obviously comes out of that. We'll hit upon some of these major announcements. This is only going to scratch the surface. Definitely, take a look at some of these things if it sparks some interest, and maybe we'll devote some deeper time moving forward to maybe show some of these. But one of the first ones is that Google announced the Agent Enterprise Platform, and this is more about a mission control to build, deploy, govern, observe, and optimize agents that are built across an organization. So Google says that the enterprise paid monthly users grew 40% quarter over quarter in the things that they've actually built as far as this agent control platform. Now, that being said, they also announced TPUs, or at least the 8th generation of their TPU. So this is a dual chip TPU. It's dubbed the TPU 8T for training, and then there's a TPU 8I for inference. So again, splitting the workloads that are needed. The training one is positioned is positioned as a 3x Ironwood performance, while the TPU 8i is really designed for low latency, high throughput agent workloads that need that inferencing. Next thing about agents, again, it's all about agents, right? So Workspace, Google Workspace, gets more agentic. So there's something called the Workspace Intelligence feature, which includes richer controls for things that are needed for Gmail, for docs, for slides, and also for collaborators. Sheet schemes, interactive canvases, and third-party data imports are actually there. Skills, again, can't talk about agents without talking about skills. That is enabled for repeatable patterns inside of those workflows. Things that you want to think about, like invoice review or generation. The next thing is AI security push with Wiz. So Google announced a new agentic threat detection tool, combining Google Threat Intelligence, security operations, and the Wiz's cloud and AI security platform, which includes the Wiz's new AI application protection platform. So again, that's part of their one of the acquisitions that Google made. The next thing too, this is all for those that are developing and building vectors or vector stores. So Google actually introduced Gemini Embedding 2. It's fully generally available. It moves from preview into production ready status. So this is a multimodal embedding system. So it's built really to understand and search across text, images, videos, and audio. And the preview saw pretty good adoption with the developers, doing all types of prototypes, everything from smarter e-commerce discovery to efficient video analysis tools. So like I said, this is out there ready for people to use. And then last but not least, these agent-ready data and storage upgrades. So Google introduced the agentic data cloud features like Knowledge Catalog and the Data Agent Kit, plus the Storage Rapid Smart Storage, which allows for MCP access and being able to support very large instances up to 10 terabytes in terms of throughputs per second. So that will obviously handle lots of AI workloads, including large enterprise workloads. So the big takeaway for me from the show is that Google is really trying to own the AI stack, everything from chips to cloud models to data to security. And it's less about look at our chatbot Gemini to more about we want to be the operating system for everything that is enterprise AI.
Yeah, Google is definitely, but surprisingly, I would say there hasn't been some major, I would say, airwaves coming from the Google, right? I think the Anthropic and OpenAI are kind of duking it out in the last few weeks, but I'm sure that Google is cooking, and even more will come out actually. One of the things that Google is doing really well is that they are slowly capturing a lot in the consumer space. I think particularly in the schools and colleges, their machines are becoming kind of like really everywhere. Basically, they are catching them young, and those people are very comfortable. Like there was a time when people were very comfortable using Office and other things, but now people are very comfortable using Chrome and workspaces, etc. So I think that strategy looks like it's paying off. Okay, let's move on to the next item, which is basically, let's go through some of the quick, rapid fire news. White House memo claims that there is a mass AI theft by Chinese firms, and White House will be doing four things. They will be sharing more information with the US AI companies about the tactics employed and actors involved in the distillation campaign. Generally, they are saying that this is happening through the distillation. It's not just about the hacking, right? Basically, the using those models that these guys are releasing, taking that output and then kind of a reverse training their own models. The second part that they will do is working to better coordinate with the companies to fight the attacks. The third is developing a set of best practices to identify, mitigate, and remediate them. And the fourth is exploring how the White House can hold foreign actors accountable for such distillation. Now, a lot of companies, like including Anthropic and OpenAI, they actually do not make their models anymore available to the companies from the Chinese territory. So, but that doesn't prevent any company, But obviously, AI has become a battlefield, and we can continue to see this tension.
So SpaceX is in the news again. It's related to a tool that I actually like and have used for a while, and that's Cursor. So SpaceX has struck a deal with Cursor, which again, Cursor is a context engineering, vibe coding, whatever you want to call it. It's an IDE to develop applications that leverages various different AI models to agentically build applications. But so SpaceX struck that deal with Cursor for the right to buy them for $60 billion. And to me, this is a win-win for Cursor. If the deal goes south for whatever reason, SpaceX will pay them $10 billion for the work that they're doing if there's no acquisition. So to me, I don't really see a downside for Cursor. So this partnership obviously, gives Elon and SpaceX a major foothold in the AI coding race. As I said, Cursor's definitely one of the top IDEs for doing that. And what benefits Cursor obviously is the large amounts of computing power in terms of resources, including Colossus, which is the supercomputer, powered by the 200,000 or so NVIDIA GPUs that SpaceX has at its disposal. So that's the news with Cursor.
Okay. And, just continuing on some of those security news, there is a news that the unauthorized group gained access to Anthropic's exclusive cyber tool, Mythos. The report is claiming from Bloomberg that, one group actually got the unauthorized access. Now, not too much details are available. Anthropic says that, it hasn't found that it has impacted their systems in any way, that they have not denied the access, but they've said that it doesn't impact the system. But it just highlights the you can see, right? I mean, there are so many different actors who are going to actually try to gain the access to the model as powerful as it is. And obviously that could be used for any purposes. So hopefully it doesn't get into wrong hands. Meta will also, by the way, record employees' keystrokes and use it to train its AI models. So, everybody needs the data, right? I mean, that's the main thing. It's to make your models better, you need the data. What they're basically going to do is that agents that they're going to deploy in their company, when the users are using them, they're going to actually take that data, like how they're clicking, how they're interacting, right? The mouse movement, the keystrokes, and all those kind of things, and then basically try to make them better. That's really the agenda. Does that, make that a little bit concerning? I think yes. A lot of people are going to be concerning. I would be concerning if somebody is going to track my. It just brings some consciousness. People become conscious about these things, and it creates some sort of a, I would say, concern. But that's the news that came out.
Yeah, that becomes a stipulation of working at Meta. When you first said that, I thought you were going to say that they were going to track all of the users, which they do anyway. You have to turn that off, but different topic. So switching gears, if anyone uses Claude Code, I dabble in it a little bit. There were reports that it seemed to, let's say, just degrade in its capabilities or performance over the last month or so. So Anthropic has come out and said they actually detailed a postmortem explaining why Claude Code appeared to degrade over the past month or 6 weeks or so. And it was really tracked down to 3 different separate changes that were affecting not only Cloud Code, but the Agent SDK, as well as then CoWork. So all these have been resolved as of about 4 days ago. Again, we're recording this on April 24th, and these were pushed out. So you should look at your version if you're using it. It should be version 2.1.116. And Anthropic is also resetting some usage limits for its subscribers as of yesterday. And again, this all kind of compounds itself into the use and things that we're seeing with usage patterns going against these tools. The other thing that I'll mention is, it's not just the U.S. companies that are putting out updates. So DeepSeek, if you remember, everybody was talking a lot last year. It seems like it was ages ago, but DeepSeek R1. So that was their foray into a thinking model. So China's DeepSeek just dropped a preview of its long anticipated version 4 model, and this increases their exposure into the open source lineup, and it signals another escalation from these Chinese companies in the global, what I call AI race. So this model actually comes in 2 different versions, the Pro and the Flash variants, and it's tuned for agent workflows, knowledge processing, as well as obviously inference with analysis from people that are using it thus far say it delivers strong capability and doing so at a lower cost, which is obviously what everyone's looking for, especially in open source. So as I mentioned, this obviously follows on from R1, which, as I said, it seems like decades ago, but it was only last year when it shocked the market in terms of what they were able to do with R1, matching some of the top tier LLMs, despite being built in just a short period of time. So with that, that rounds out some quick news on DeepSeek.
Okay, and I think one of the iconic company, Apple, Tim Cook steps down, and John Ternus will take over as the Apple CEO. John is also actually a long timer. He's been leading the hardware engineering. He's I think he's a UPenn graduate, basically, from the engineering College of Engineering, and then he has been there for a long time, and he has been doing the hardware, basically leading the charter, which is important for Apple. Now he inherits a bunch of things, but I think the main thing, I would say, the main issue is not just Tim Cook stepping down. Main issue is it being a part of the trend, Jamie. If you see, it's been happening a lot in the last 6 months or even 1 year. If you see, there has been a lot of transitions happening. The CEOs are actually stepping down and paving the way for the next generation to actually lead because of what era of AI is bringing. Apple is just being the latest example. You have seen that what is happening it happened at AWS in the last couple of years. You have seen that happening at Adobe, for example, just recently, right? I mean, it's just continuously happening. The CEOs you basically need different kind of mindset to actually, it's the same thing happened with the Walmart as well. Doug McMillan also retired recently. So a new CEOs are stepping in, and one of the key thing on their mind and one of the charter they are being given is basically lead in the era of AI. By the way, Meta and Amazon also announced that they have actually agreed to a multi-billion-dollar deal over several years, and they have not disclosed the financial details in terms of the size or the tenure, but over several years, multi-billion, in which the Meta company will use tens of millions of Amazon Web Services Graviton chip core. Graviton is actually not even GPU; it's a CPU. Basically, it features 192 cores and a cache that is 5 times larger than the previous generation, which basically helps it reduce the delays in how quickly those cores communicate. So that speed up everything and by up to 33%. So fast chip, but CPU. And Meta is a existing customer of Amazon. They use a lot, and they have signed up this agreement as well. Okay, moving on. OpenAI launches GPT-Image-2. It's the first image model from them with the thinking capabilities. So when you select a thinking or a pro model in ChatGPT, Images 2.0 can search the web for real-time information, and it can create the multiple distinct images from one prompt and double-check its own outputs. Now, if you see this model, this model is actually pretty slow if you include that mode, okay? Because you are making it to think which means that the model is actually slow. It is not super fast. But I think it does a pretty good job. People are actually posting what they've created with the Image 2. It's a really, really good quality, actually. um, you can do a bunch of things, and I'll show you actually some of the images that I generated, Jamie. So here you see, this is actually an image of, my one of my favorite comic, my childhood nostalgia, is the Phantom. It's a character, it basically is based out of Africa, son of a son of a basically a person who died in the ship piracy, etc. So fantastic, actually, the storyline, etc. I love it. And I just asked it to create a comic strip with this basically just a comic strip based on the Phantom. And you can see, I think the visual, because I know it well, I think they are high fidelity images that it has created. So pretty, I would say, impressive. I have in the past also created, and the quality was actually much worse. It wasn't as good. The storyline was actually not coherent. Some of the images were not also as good, but this is actually solid work. In fact, what I did is, actually, you can also actually ask it to do some editing of your own images and insert yourself, right? So I asked it to actually create an image of me playing tennis against Roger Federer. So here I am, Jamie, and I think this is also pretty impressive. The quality, if you see, it's actually 2K quality. So it's a very, very high quality of the images that it creates. And of course, if you use a thinking model, it can create multiple distinct images at once. So up to 8 outputs in one go with character and object continuity. So you don't have to do actually the one by one, but 8 distinct images that it can create, actually. Now, it's available today and to all users in the GPT codex and the API as well.
That's pretty impressive, actually. So I know it popped up in my pro subscription, plus subscription. So I'm eager to give this a shot myself.
Yeah, and I think these are becoming very popular because while Sora, probably they have disbanded because they did not find too much of a future. They want to focus, but I think images will continue, because images is not just about images, right? There is a lot of infographics, the design patterns, etc. And people are like, Claude has recently launched a design tool as well. So I don't think images are going anywhere. OpenAI will continue to invest in the image models.
Yeah, and some of the things I read is the image generation. Well, this is going to bleed into what I'm going to talk about. So I'll kind of thread the needle on this. So OpenAI also came out with a new model called GPT-5.5. But that 5.5 model has a lot of great capabilities, which I'll talk about in a minute. But one of them is the ability to create more work items or better quality work items. So think about things like presentations. One of the things that I've seen as well as read is that some of that content that's going into presentations is actually being used or borrowed from the new image model. So you can start to see where all these things now start to blend into each other, which is great because it just makes our lives easier for the things that we're either creating and or leveraging from these tools. So yeah, pretty impressed with the image. And anecdotally, I've read and seen a lot of call it chatter on the quality of this, and people are saying this is really good, maybe better than Nano Banana in terms of its current capability. So I definitely plan to put it through its paces. For what you used and what you generated already, would you say it's on par or maybe better? Just your own personal?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, I think based on what I have, and I haven't played a lot with the Nano Banana, honestly, but based on what I've played with the other models and what we are seeing in terms of the chatter, it looks pretty good. Particularly the thinking part, right? I mean, I think that, because generally the thinking part is kind of missing in the image. It also it can do real-time search, and so it can get a really real-time information. The quality is also good. The resolution is also, you can generate of any arbitrary size, basically, of the resolution as well, like up to 2K, but any arbitrary size of the images. So I think it's pretty good that way. There is no preset like size of the images in this case.
Great. Yeah. Like I said, some of the things I've seen already looks pretty good. So I'm eager to try it out. I do use Nano Banana a lot. So it'll interesting to do a little compare. So I kind of already tipped my hat a little bit to one of the things, but OpenAI did come out with 5.5. I don't know if some of this was maybe pressure because of the quote unquote Anthropic Mythos model. and all the talk about that over the last 2 weeks. But 5.5 is out. General statement: it's better at everything. That might be a great way of saying it. So it's better at coding. It's better at the computer use. So it executes multi-step engineering tasks end to end now. And it does this across large context for systems. So that's really helpful when you start to think about these agentic processes, especially for computer use scenarios. It's able to do long running autonomous execution, which is again really good when you start to talk about doing coding and the things that you want these agentic agents to actually take care of. And this is really good because this also helps to deliver very polished work deliverables. And I kind of alluded to this when we were talking about the image models, but this is really useful for when we start to think about collaboration across the things that we do every day: documents, spreadsheets, presentations. It's able to do a better job at that. Again, just because it's a better tool, but it also has these other tools associated with it. Again, better reasoner, long context, and capable of tying in that context into its analysis. The other thing that's really interesting, and we're starting to see these frontier models or frontier firms start to think about this next concept, which is how do they become more token efficient? Because we could, these new models are more capable. That also means that they are more pricey. Same thing here. GPT 5.5 is a higher quality model, comes at a higher cost. So what does that mean? Well, in order for me to get more out of it, it does a better job on how it thinks about, how does it use fewer tokens and fewer retries in the things that it does. That will drive lower cost because it's being more efficient again on those tokens. It also reduces latency as well. If you don't have as much tokens going in, there's less to actually think about. And as I alluded to before, I don't know if this was, I don't want to say rushed out the door, but I think OpenAI certainly saw an opportunity as a way to respond to Anthropic and their Mythos piece. I guess the thing around that statement is that OpenAI came out and said, this model underwent extensive third-party cybersecurity reviews, red teaming, and it also shipped with its strongest safety safeguards to date. So Greg Brockman said that GPT 5.5 brings OpenAI one step closer to its vision around a super app. And I know we talked about this before. OpenAI is kind of retooling the way that things work with their different applications and entry points into the models. So this will just make it that much easier to handle all the things you need to do, everything from the agentic workflows to computer use, to coding, document generation, and just the day-to-day use of the models. So that being said, that is 5.5. I'll throw one thing up on the screen, but the numbers are really good. I mean, if you look at everything across the board here, 5.5 just basically slams what 5.4, and I personally thought 5.4 was a really good model as well, which is my workhorse model that I use every day. But everything across the board is higher, and especially as you start to look at what they're comparing against with Opus 4.7, you see that 5.5 actually beats out 4.7 in a lot of these, everything from the terminal bench to the GDP val. So these are great scores. Give it a try if you haven't already.
Yeah, and as you're saying here, one of the things I think to highlight, Jamie, is the CyberGym benchmark. On this, you can see it's 81.8%, which is higher than Opus 4.7 or 5.4. Now, one of the reasons is that Opus 4.7 was deliberately diluted on this benchmark because Mythos, on the other end, is like way higher. I think 83% or something, upwards of 83%. But Opus was deliberately not put with those kind of strength because Anthropic has taken a different approach to cybersecurity compared to what OpenAI has taken. Now, OpenAI is saying that they will put a lot of safeguard. They are going to release this API, the 5.5 API, will actually have the those kind of safeguard, and that's why it is taking a little bit time to actually release it, even though the model is available, but the API is going to come with some safeguarding. So we'll see which approach is better. But one of the things is also, Jamie, important to mention, the cost of this model. This is the costly model. Okay, while everything is good with it, it's actually double the cost of GPT 5.4. Double the cost for everything, input, output, cached input. Everything is double. However, that is still is almost in line with the Opus 4.7. Opus 4.7 is, for example, $5 for the input, for $30 for actually the for $25 actually for the output, and 5.5 is basically $5 for input and $30. So it's effectively slightly more expensive than Opus 4.7. So people have to make sure that they use it effectively. I think 5.4 is still a good enough model for many things, and it is half the cost.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Good week, Jamie. Is still towards the end of the week. There's always a lot that gets released, and we are still not able to cover everything. But hopefully, this is a good episode. Cover round up the entire week in a short time.
Yeah, like I said, AI never rests, and there's always a lot to talk about. So with that, have a good rest of the week, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Ciao, everyone. Bye, Jamie. Bye, everyone.
Yep.